Tom, I mean, I want to ask you, do you detect aspects of a bit of a 50s fixation in people like, say, Miriam Cates with her kind of natalist, Kinderkirche cooker type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, Miriam Cates is kind of certifiable, but like her driving principle, if you like, also I don't agree with it, but I'm happy to explain it, is that women shouldn't be afraid to say that I want to be a stay-at-home mum, and that politicians shouldn't ignore or judge the millions of people out there, men and women, who live lifestyles that is unchanged by decades of social progress, who want the man to be the breadwinner and the woman to look after the house and bring up the children. Millions of people in Britain live those lives, and they do think in that fashion, and they think that and people like Miriam Cates thinks that politicians are judging them, and they shouldn't. But the trouble is, from that, those people also tend to think that social change, i.e. women going out to work, has been the thin end of the wedge for like moral decay in society, and that from that have come all sorts of other undesirable things, like, say, gay people getting married and having children. But for the reason that we're talking about 50s nostalgia now, but it should also be understood the context of our discussion, which is we are talking about a government that is dying on its arse and is going to get kicked out. And where she and her fall down is that they just don't realise that politics doesn't exist to serve people like that who are sort of doing fine. It's there to enable people who want to do more with their lives. And this politics of nostalgia, it pretends that you can solve problems by going back to a time before they existed, which you obviously can't. Like, you can't disinvent modern life any more than you can disinvent the nuclear bomb. And people like her and what she stands for, fascinating though it is to discuss, they're going to get a real shock from the voters. And this pandering to people who want everything to go back to the way things used to be, like, it died. Like, Cameron and Osborne came back in because they realised that the Tories were hopeless on that front, and that there was no way of winning an election without embracing liberal metropolitan values. And that very much still stands. We just had the spasm of Brexit that has sent us backwards. But the truths have not changed. Like, we have moved on. We just have a governing party that's going nuts because it's very, very near the end.
It's interesting. Is this a bit of a digression? But you mentioned sort of the idea of families living extremely traditional roles. The mum brings up the kids, the dad goes out to work. It's entirely possible to do that, should you wish, and still have progressive views across the board on all kinds of other things. I know quite a lot of enormously progressive women with crazy progressive ideas. Some of them are even married to women who still want to have that role of, I will take time to bring up the kids, but it doesn't define everything about me. And that seems to be the thing that Planet Cates doesn't get, that you can have a multiplicity of ideas. It's not all determined by the fact of whether you fit, the idea of a sort of 1950s radio workers' playtime.
As you say, I mean, it's not incompatible to say that you think that for you, as a mother, that the best place you could be is at home until they're 10 or 11, and still be progressive in every other way.
Be at home teaching them woke stuff.
Of course you can, but it's hard. So all people like Miriam Cates are trying to do is make politics out of something. And you can make politics out of it by saying, well, look, you can say, well, you know what? There are millions of families out there who still lead traditional lives and they want to lead a traditional family lifestyle. And yet they're constantly being told by The Guardian and told by the BBC that they're in the wrong. Well, all she's trying to do is make politics, not solve any problems. And that should be extremely obvious. And that's why it's not going to get her anywhere.
Matt, when the 50s gets talked up, it tends to always be in terms of order, especially law and order. You can leave your door open. Kids could play in the street without being molested, all this kind of stuff, which, as we know, it wasn't strictly true. Particularly when you hear it in social media, particularly in, kind of the places where the boomer post or the older person will congregate, very quickly it becomes clear that this is a proxy for, why don't you spit it out? Everybody was white. You liked it when everybody was white, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's undeniable there's a lot of that going on. And, of course, to have been an adult in the 1950s, at this point, you'd have to be well into your 80s by now. So we're not talking about, people who can remember it very clearly. It's a long way away, and there's very few people who have living memory of that time as a grown-up, as someone who genuinely understood what was happening, not just someone who's, as you say, like a teenager or someone in their 20s who was just kind of excited about being in the world. And I always think that thing about you could leave your door open. I think, because there was nothing to steal.
Yeah.